Hey everyone, before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing how global our community is. Now, let's get started. Some mile markers are just numbers. Mile 209 is the one that made me afraid of my own headlights, and I have been trucking nights for years. That run was simple on paper. Get the load in by 3 a.m. or risk losing the contract and maybe the truck. Rain turned the interstate into a black mirror. The cab smelled like wet asphalt and diesel, and my dash lights kept flickering like they were breathing. At 2:08 a.m., my GPS said I would barely make it if I did not stop. And if you have ever chased a deadline on the highway, you know that is when you start ignoring stories that I saw the green sign first, slick with rain. Mile 209. Right beside it, on the shoulder, a hitchhiker stood perfectly still. Pale coat, dark hair, head tilted just a little too far, watching my truck come in. Everything outside was dripping, but her coat looked bone dry, like the water refused to touch it. As my grill came level, the dash lights flared. My clock snapped from 2:08 to 2:09, and the CB hissed a whisper in the static. Do not stop. I rolled past, telling myself it was just a tired brain. A couple of minutes later, the GPS showed more miles chewed up, and for a moment I relaxed. Then another sign slid into the headlights. Mile 209. Same slick metal, same pale coat and tilted head, like someone had rewound the world. My odometer said I had not turned around, but outside the smell of wet asphalt thickened. Overhead lamps flickered with my dash, and the radio answered my call with close, slow breathing. The third time I saw the sign, I knew it was not a missed exit. Rain hammered until the highway became a tunnel. Behind the marker, my headlights caught a cluster of roadside crosses hunched together in the grass, one fresh and pale, a little carved truck nailed to it, and 209 burned into the wood. My phone showed no signal. The faint glow of other rigs was gone. Every lifeline had slipped away without a sound that I told myself there had to be a sane answer. Highway hypnosis. Exhaustion. If I pulled over, I could prove she was just nerves and rain. So I did the one thing that voice told me not to do. I eased onto the shoulder, hazards stuttering over the wet rail and crooked crosses. Mile 209 hanging in my mirrors like it was printed on the dark, while the hitchhiker turned and walked toward my door with the calm of someone arriving home. When she climbed in, the smell of wet asphalt and diesel slammed into the cab. Her boots left damp marks on the mat, but her pale coat and dark hair were completely dry. You are late, she said, like she had been watching my clock. You missed the sign. She pointed to the crosses. The newest one's carved truck looked exactly like mine. Time burned to 2:09. I should have pushed her back out. Instead, I pulled onto the highway with her still beside me. As my tires rolled past the marker again, every light on my dash died. The hazard click stopped. Only my headlights cut the rain, and even they seemed to be swallowed. Do not stop, she said, and now it sounded like a rule. The same shredded tires slid under me, the same black skid mark, the clock flickering between 2:08 and 2:09 before freezing. Ahead, through the storm, a jackknifed truck appeared, hazards blinking in the same weak rhythm mine had kept. It was my truck. Same color, same logo. Through the shattered windshield, I could see my own frozen dashboard, clock locked on 2:09. I slammed the brake. The pedal went to the floor like air. The world did not slow. It tipped, filling with metal and glass and the choking reek of wet asphalt and diesel, until everything narrowed to flickering light that I woke under hospital fluorescence that could not sit still. A trooper told me they had cut me out of a wreck at mile 2:09. My dash clock stopped at 2:09, my camera intact. On his phone, he showed me footage of myself talking to the empty passenger seat, asking someone if they saw the crosses, while a smear of static whispered, "Do not stop," in my own voice. Before he left, he hesitated. When they first arrived, he said, he thought he saw a woman in a pale coat by my door, head tilted just so, gone when he blinked. They put another cross out there with the rest, fresh wood, and a little carved truck. Time burned to 2:09. I will not run nights anymore. But when the rain hits and the house is quiet, the bedroom fills with the smell of wet asphalt and diesel. And I hear a patient voice waiting to see what I do if I ever reach mile 209 again. Do not stop. The only time I ever heard my own voice answer me was on a channel nobody uses anymore. It was a dead strip of desert highway, just wet pavement, engine rumble, and CB hum. My name is Riley. Dispatch had promised a bonus if I got a load into the city before 3:30 a.m. I already had a reputation for being jumpy on the radio. I wanted that money, and I wanted to prove I could handle nights on the route my late mentor used to run. The one where he once told me Channel 13 belongs to someone else now. Most truckers avoid that channel. My cab smelled like stale coffee and warm plastic. Tires hummed, wipers squeaked, heater clicked. I kept the CB low and flipped through chatter just to hear another human voice breathing in the dark. When the dial slid past 13, a clear voice cut through the static and said my handle. Riley, you're late again. The little Channel 13 light glowed red, a tiny heartbeat on the console. Under the voice, a faint country song looped on one line, the same song my mentor loved. The voice calmly gave my exact speed and mileage. Numbers I had not spoken, then mentioned dense fog near mile 47. Even though my weather app promised clear skies, that I snapped the dial away and told myself it was bleed over, some joker reading my info off a screen. Another channel gave me ordinary complaints, and I almost relaxed. Then Channel 13 clicked on by itself. The red light blinked twice, then started pulsing in time with the dash clock. A low whisper said, "Watch your left lane. Debris in 10 seconds." 10 seconds suddenly felt like forever. On 10, I had to yank the wheel to miss a busted pallet lying exactly where the voice said it would be. Coffee flew, my heart slammed, and the little LED beat faster like it felt it too. I grabbed the mic and asked who it was. Static hissed, then my own rhythm answered. You are. Just later than you think. The highway ahead emptied out. The hum of the tires turned hollow, like a tunnel. The voice ignored my questions and talked about my mentor instead, using his nickname and repeating a joke only we shared. Then it said, 3:17. That's when the fog closes. If I pushed it, I could still make the delivery by 3:30, but 3:17 now sat between me and that bonus like a wall. I told myself it had to be a stunt. Someone at the yard with my logs and old recordings could build a convincing ghost. That was safer to believe than anything else. When I flipped to call dispatch on another channel, the line shrieked and died. Every channel went silent except 13. Out ahead, fog began to pool low and thick exactly where the voice had promised. Headlights I'd been following melted into the gray like they'd driven off the edge of the world. Every time I reached to shut the CB off, the switch snapped back, red light throbbing faster. The little heartbeat losing control. The voice started reading truck makes and colors like a roll call. White Freightliner. Blue Peterbilt. Old Kenworth with a dented driver's door. Then it named mine. Do you want to die with them again? It asked softly. Or do it different this time? My phone had no signal. No exits left that wouldn't wreck my route. Every reasonable choice pointed straight into the fog and toward 3:17. Take the ramp on your right, it said. Unmarked. Small. You know it. I saw it then, a narrow strip of concrete breaking off the interstate, almost invisible in the dark that if I took it, there was no way back in time. My handle crackled through the speaker again, my own voice begging myself to listen. I yanked the wheel and committed to the ramp, feeling the trailer sway behind me like it hated the choice. The side road climbed just enough to give me a view of the interstate below. I rolled to a stop on the shoulder, hands locked on the wheel, Channel 13 light pulsing like a panic heartbeat. Below me, the fog closed over the lanes like a living thing. At 3:17 on the dot, the red LED went wild and my cab filled with sound. Screaming brakes, tearing metal, Panicked CB calls poured from the speaker even though my mic sat untouched. And in the middle of it, I heard my own voice calling Mayday. Same tone, same nervous laugh, shouting the exact details that other voice had given me earlier. For a heartbeat, the display showed my handle as both caller and receiver, like I was hearing myself from inside the wreck I had just missed. Then everything dropped to a thin hiss. The light slowed to a normal blink. The fog thinned enough to show red and blue emergency strobes flickering in the gray distance. Bonus gone, schedule ruined. I sat there alive because I had trusted a voice that sounded exactly like mine. Later, I watched a news clip about the pileup at mile 47, under the reporter's microphone. So faint I almost missed it. That same country song played on the same broken line my mentor loved. The next day, I pulled my CB recordings. Channel 13 was full of my own voice talking to silence. Now I park my rig with the power off and the mic unplugged. But some nights, right at 3:17, the Channel 13 light gives one slow blink in the dark, like a heartbeat waiting for me to answer again. I used to think every truck stop on the map either existed or it did not. Then one night, I stopped at a place that had already burned down, and I did not find that part out until days later. If you are listening to this on a long drive, I hope you are not low on fuel. I was. My name is Mark. I was chasing extra miles, trying to prove to my boss I could handle the longer runs and prove to my wife I was not throwing our life away on the road. The plan was simple. Make it to a big, familiar stop 2 hours ahead, fuel up there, and still roll in early. The fuel gauge, though, started kissing empty a lot sooner than I expected. The GPS froze for a second, then the map jolted like it skipped a frame. When it came back, a new little fuel icon had appeared ahead, tagged only as service. I had never seen it before on this route. Out in the distance, off the main line of the interstate, I saw a faint neon glow shimmering over the dark like a mirage. Wind pushed at the trailer. The radio was dead. Every rational part of me said keep going, trust the plan. But the needle dipped again, flirting with the red. And if you have ever felt that sinking dread of running dry in the dark, you know why I took the exit. The access road was too narrow for a rig my size. Yet somehow the truck slid into it like it had been greased for me. Cracked asphalt opened into a lot full of older model trucks, the kind you barely see anymore, all idling softly with no silhouettes in the cabs. Ahead, a buzzing neon sign struggled against the night. It should have read Midnight Diner, but half the letters were dead, leaving something like MIIGHTNER. The buzz was louder than any sign I had ever heard, like a wasp nest wrapped in glass. The second I opened my door, the smell hit me. Old frying oil, heavy and stale, tangled with cigarette smoke thick enough to chew. Nobody allows smoking inside anymore, but the air around that building reeked of it, as if time itself had not gotten the memo. Inside, it was all chrome, cracked vinyl, and yellow light leaking through greasy windows. An analog clock above the counter read 1:37. The second hand twitched, but did not move. My phone, on the other hand, said 2:11. A waitress brought me black coffee without asking and called me by name. She said, "Rough night, Mark?" Like we had done this 100 times. The menu prices were wrong for this decade. Too low. Other drivers at the counter talked routes I knew had been shut down years ago. On a corner shelf, a little TV played a weather report, date overlay flickering between tonight and some past year. When I tried to make a joke about what year it was, conversation flattened. I slid away. The waitress just said, very softly, "You did not make it last time. Do not stay long." I paid in cash because suddenly the idea of handing them a card felt like I would be sharing something I should not. The register was an ancient clattering thing that stuck before it opened, like it had not been used in years. My receipt looked wrong too. The paper yellowed, prices low, the date smudged and off by decades. Outside, I moved to fuel up. The pump rattled awake with a cough. The price per gallon was impossibly cheap, numbers clicking like old tumblers. In the corner of the display, where the time usually sits, 1:37 blinked over and over. The analog pump clock did not move, but my fuel gauge in the cab slowly climbed that I should have been relieved. Instead, my phone refused to load maps or calls. No signal, no GPS, just a frozen dot in blank space. The highway beyond the lot was nothing but black. No tail lights, no engine hum. It felt like the world stopped at the edge of that cracked asphalt. The smell of frying oil and smoke thickened, even though the diner windows showed nothing but calm movement. People lifting forks slowly, talking in loops. Then a small bell began ringing inside, turning, second by second, into a harsh alarm. Another driver I had barely noticed grabbed my arm as I turned. His clothes were wrong for now. Jacket style, hat, everything slightly out of date. "If you hear the alarm," he said, "do not go back inside this time." Red light flickered against his face from the neon. I wanted to believe this was just some weird, stubborn old stop that apps ignored, the kind locals used, stuck in time on purpose. That was the red herring I clung to. Old timers. No updates. A pocket of the past on a forgotten stretch. Then I glanced through the diner window. The TV on the shelf glitched, picture warping, and a news crawl slid across the bottom. It mentioned a fire at that very truck stop, several drivers trapped. Time of incident, 1:37 a.m. The image on the screen was the same room I had just been sitting in, but burning. The analog clock above the counter in the broadcast was stopped at the same time as the one over the real counter. My stomach dropped in a way I cannot describe. The waitress turned toward the screen slowly, like she knew what was coming. Inside, the bell became a siren. The clock's second hand finally jerked to life, twitching toward 1:37. Choice hit me like a slap. Stay, finish the coffee I had barely touched, pretend this was a stress dream, or run for the cab and take whatever hit waited for my schedule, my promotion, my marriage. I bolted, boots slipping on cracked asphalt. I hauled myself into the truck and turned the key. The neon outside swelled bright, every dead letter lighting up for one impossible moment. Midnight Diner, perfect and whole, buzzing so loud it rattled my mirrors. In those mirrors I saw flames blooming in the diner windows while the people inside moved like a recording, calm and slow. The waitress stood at the glass with the coffee pot, watching me. Smoke curled around her shoulders like it had done this before. The clock above her head hit 1:37 and stopped again as the inside turned white. I floored it. For a heartbeat, it felt like I was dragging the whole lot with me, like the trailer was pulling through syrup. Then there was a lurch, a popping in my ears, and I was back on clean interstate, merging into darkness. When I looked in the mirror, there was nothing behind me but scrub, gravel, and a broken fence line where the driveway should have been. No neon, no lot, no diner. My GPS blinked back to life as if I had never left the highway. The little dot snapped to the route. Fuel gauge still showed the extra diesel I had taken on from a pump that no longer stood anywhere. Days later, at home, I typed the name from that faded receipt into my phone. Articles came up about a fatal truck stop fire years ago. The photo showed the same sign, same missing letters, the MIIGHDNER skeleton I had seen flickering against the night. The fire had started in the kitchen. Time of the first emergency call, 1:37 a.m. You know what should not have been possible? A new charge from that truck stop hitting my card on the anniversary of the fire, small and neat, like a cheap cup of coffee. Now, whenever my dash clock glitches, it always lands on 1:37. For a second, the cab smells like old grease and cigarette smoke, and a faint neon reflection trembles in the windshield where there is only open road. I do not take unnamed service exits anymore, but sometimes I wonder, late at night, how many drivers are still sitting inside that place, finishing coffee they never got to taste the first time. I used to think convoys were the safest place you could be on the road. Then one night, I led a convoy that never existed, and every camera on that mountain swore I was alone. If you are listening to this while you drive, you might want to glance at your rear view right now. My name is Evan. Years back, I swore off the canyon grade after I nearly lost my brakes in winter. People at the yard still joked about it. The guy who spooked off the pass. When dispatch offered me a better paying dedicated lane, there was a catch. I had to prove I could run that same canyon again, at night, and make it over the bridge before 3 a.m. when the wind usually shut it down. I told them yes, because I was tired of being the punchline. That be why the time I started down the long grade. The sky was a hard strip of black above the cliffs. Engine brake growled. Reflector posts flashed past in a steady strobe. The CB was strangely quiet for a route that usually buzzed with late-night chatter. In the mirror, I saw a single set of headlights cresting the hill behind me, white and steady. No big deal. Another truck dropping into the canyon. Then a sour smell crept into the cab. Hot brakes and antifreeze, sharp and burning. Like someone else's system was cooking itself to death right under my nose that I tapped the gauges. All normal. As the grade steepened, that lone pair of headlights behind me grew slowly larger in the rear view, always at the same height. It did not dip into hollows or bounce on rough patches. It just floated closer, locked to the glass. The CB crackled, once with a voice I did not recognize saying, "Convoy is formed," and then went dead again. A few minutes later, the mirror did something that made my skin crawl. One truck became two, then three. A faint row of grills and marker lights stacked neatly behind me in the reflection, like we were running tight. Out the side mirrors, the real highway behind was empty. No headlights, no rigs, just dark canyon walls and my own trailer cutting through it. I tried to laugh it off as reflections, some weird angle of glass catching something from the dash. Then the lead truck in the mirror flicked its hazard lights on. They blinked in a slow, steady rhythm, like a measured heartbeat. A moment later, the others did the same, every phantom truck's hazard syncing perfectly. My own reflection's hazard lights joined in, winking along in the glass even though my switch was untouched. Roadside crosses started popping up along the guardrail. More than I remembered, small white shapes that flashed in time with that rhythm. For every truck I could count in the mirror, there seemed to be a cross catching their light that I keyed the mic. "Any of you boys stacked up behind me on the grade, speak up." A calm voice answered on 19, saying my name the way only people at my yard did. "We're right with you, Evan. Like last time. Just stay in line." I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe some safety video audio bleeding in, or an old recording someone was messing with. Red herring, right? Because the alternative was that I had a line of rigs behind me that existed only where the glass could see them. Wind hit the trailer as the canyon narrowed. Signs warned of high crosswinds and advised reduced speed. I eased down a gear, engine brake snarling louder. The smell of hot brakes got worse, enough to sting my eyes. Still, my temp sat steady. Behind me, the convoy's hazard pattern sped up, matching the thump of my heart. Anytime I even grazed the turn signal, the mirror showed that line tightening, grills almost kissing my trailer. "Stay in line." The voice repeated, sliding between channels. "This time, make it to the bridge." Dispatch called right then, asking why my speed had dropped so much. Their live tracker showed me alone on the grade. No traffic to slow me. No one behind. No one ahead. I did not know how to tell them I was scared of trucks that only existed in a piece of glass. That I tried other channels. Nothing. Even the usual. Insomniac drivers that haunted these passes were silent tonight. My phone lost signal, data dying, weather app frozen. The only thing that still spoke to me was the calm, insistent voice telling me to hold my lane, hold my speed, and stay with the group. That was the moment I realized this was not just random. The voice began describing an accident on this very grade. Multiple trucks pushed together by sudden wind, one going over the side near the bridge. It sounded like a safety story until it started quoting me. Word for word, it repeated what I had screamed years ago when my brakes felt spongy, things I had never told anyone. "You dropped out last time," it said. "You were supposed to be with us." The bridge appeared ahead, a tight ribbon of concrete over a black cut in the earth. Wind buffeted the trailer hard enough to nudge me toward the guardrail. My hands hurt from gripping the wheel. The convoy in the mirror tightened formation, hazard lights now strobing fast and angry. For a second, in the glass, I saw my own truck twice, one behind the others, one in front. In the real world, there was only my hood and that narrow bridge. "Stay in line," the voice ordered. "Do not touch that brake." This was the choice: obey the unseen convoy and roll onto the bridge at speed, hoping the wind played nice, or defy it and risk losing control, losing the lane, maybe losing everything I was trying to prove. My instinct, the part of me that remembered the first near miss, screamed louder than any dispatcher that I dragged the engine brake harder than I should have and started dropping gears. The rig shuddered. Tires yelped. For a heartbeat, the trailer tried to walk around me, but I fought it back straight, edging toward the shoulder before the bridge. In the mirror, the other version of me did not slow. He stayed with the line, surging onto the bridge with the convoy at his back. A sound like a whole scrapyard collapsing poured out of the CB. Screeches, crashes, a chorus of horns, then silence so pure it made my ears ring. The hazard lights in the mirror winked out one by one until there was only black. When I dared to look again, the rear view showed empty road. No trucks, no crosses, just my own taillights fading into the dark behind me. I rolled over the bridge. At a crawl, every gust of wind pressing its hand against the side of my trailer. No one in front, no one behind. At the next way station, the cameras and logs showed exactly what dispatch later told me. I had been the only rig on that grade for miles. Years later, I found an old article about a canyon pileup from before my near crash. The grainy photo showed a tangle of trucks. One, half hanging off the bridge, wore my company's logo, though the date on the story was long before I ever hired on. The list of the dead included a driver with my initials. Now, when my rig is parked and everything is quiet, I sometimes catch the faint glow of stacked headlights in my dark rear view. The cab fills with the sour trace of hot brakes and antifreeze. The CB, even switched off, gives one soft hiss, and a calm voice I almost recognize whispers, "Stay in line." All right, if you made it this far, you have driven through some dark miles with me tonight. From mile 209's Hitchhiker, to the voice on Channel 13, to the truck stop that should not exist, and finally a convoy that only shows up in your mirrors. One thing is clear: the open road is never really empty. Out there, in the spaces between way stations and rest stops, time gets weird. Places burn down and keep serving coffee. Radios pick up things they should not. Mile markers remember what happened at a certain hour and do not let it go. And sometimes the only witness to all of it is a tired driver and the little red lights blinking on his dash. If you are listening to this on a night run, I hope your gauges are steady, your fuel is full, and your mirrors are showing only what should be there. But if you ever smell wet asphalt in a closed room, or hear a voice on a dead channel call you by name, or notice your clock frozen at the wrong time, maybe you will remember these stories and pay a little more attention. Tell me in the comments, which story followed you the longest after the video ended? And have you ever seen or heard something on the road you still cannot explain? If you are brave enough to ride with me again, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and keep your notifications on, because the next trip might be through a stretch of highway you thought you knew. Until then, keep your eyes on the lines, your hands on the wheel. And if something is following you in the rear view, whatever you do, do not stop.